when I was getting treated at Stanford, the first 8 cycles I had were in the basement. And they had this, the cancer day ward or whatever they called it. It was in the basement. It was all fluorescent lights. It was a terrible place.
Not soothing at all.
Yeah, so after that, they were still in the main building there. This is before the build-out that they did. But they moved it upstairs, and then they had it really nicely set up where, you had these lazy boys and everybody, there's 4 people kind of staring at each other.
Right.
There's TV, you're talking, and I don't want to say it's a festive atmosphere,
no, but at least
it's,
you're interacting.
You're not thinking about what's happening
Right.
to you. You're
Right.
interacting with other people, taking your mind off of it. But now, the cancer center is in this beautiful building, and there's a ton of natural light, and there are live plants, and they really thought a lot about the atmosphere. What I remember really strikingly about being in isolation in the basement of Stanford was that they had this courtyard. I was right on this courtyard, and it was this huge glass window, and I could see the garden, and it was just the touch of having that. It meant everything. It was just thinking back on it, how much that meant to me to be able to look outside at the flowers. And the natural light. It just was. It was huge. I don't know. It's weird. I would have never thought about that before. You know.
Right, but to be able to look at something that's thriving and
and alive. Yeah.
And so, you do have other relatives that are survivors of various forms of cancer, or?
Yeah, my grandma had breast carcinoma when she was in her early 40s, and she lived till she was 90 something.
Good for her.
Yeah, so she had a mastectomy, and then my dad passed away from melanoma a couple years ago. My mom and sister are doing fine, but they're taking the precautions of being good with the mammograms and ultrasounding the ovaries and all those things.
Right,
I have a BRCA1 mutation, which means that I had a very high chance of getting breast cancer by a certain age. I don't know if it's age 60 or 70, and a very high chance of getting ovarian cancer. So, you do this screening. I think optimally you kind of take out your ovaries, but trying to hang on to those suckers for a little bit longer.
You're not there
I don't know that they're doing so hot. I went through menopause twice during chemo, but anyway, they're still in me for whatever that's worth. But probably not the best plan.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, well, thank you for sharing some of your experience. And I think one of the things I heard from you, which I will take back to the group, is as I said, I hadn't thought about students.
Yeah.
Somebody's attending college, and either they opt to go back to where they're from, their hometown, in which case they're still removed from the class, or even if they're still in the same town as the university, college they're attending, who can help out with that.
Yeah. I mean, the women seems like we're getting younger and younger at diagnosis here, so it broke my heart to meet people in high school with this, but I did. But I think college-age kids are right in the middle of this kind of thing, more than we knew before. I don't know if it's actually increased in frequency, or whether we're paying more attention. I don't know. I don't know what all this is coming from.
It's certainly that's one of the big research projects up in Marin County. The high incidence.
Yeah.
Is it because you have an affluent group of people that can afford all the care and get all the detection going on, or what's happening? And then it's interesting if you talk to somebody that says, I haven't bothered going through the testing because, there aren't that many women in my family that had it. Well, then you think about, was your mom an only child?
Yeah.
And was her mother an only child? Did you not have enough of a sample size, right?
Absolutely.
To think through that. So as you continue on through your being a survivor, what do you have? Are you still on medication? Do you have specific checkbacks that you have to do, or this far out you're...
Well, it's. I always thought it was weird how little surveillance they do. I feel like I do better monitoring with my dog patients, but
Good boy.
Yeah, you know, I convinced, when I could prove that I had the BRCA1 mutation and that I was at high risk for developing cancer in the other breast, my oncologist at that point agreed to MRI that other breast once a year.
Oh, wonderful.
Plus I get a mammogram.
Right.
I think I'm doing the mammogram every 6 months, and I conned my gynecologist into ordering an ovarian ultrasound once a year as well.
Good.
She cries cystic ovaries for the purposes of insurance payments. But anyway, so that's the kind of surveillance I'm doing because I'm at high risk for another cancer.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, 11 years out, probably higher risk for a different cancer than a recurrence from the initial one, although I don't know when you ever really feel safe from that.
Right, that's true. But I think just fighting, you make the very good point. People can't sit back and just go by guidelines because you're not in a certain age group. No, you don't need mammogram yet.
Yeah,
fight for that.
That's the weird thing about all this is I feel like if I had not insisted on these things, like the biopsy, like the MRI, like the ovarian ultrasounds, none of it would be happening. Not any of it.
Right.
And so, I don't know, that's kind of scary. And I'm fortunate enough that I have a medical background, but if I didn't, I just fear for people that fall through these cracks.
Yeah, they do. Because they don't have education, they don't feel like they're entitled to be their own advocate, right? To ask for this, and hopefully the bigger issue of healthcare in this country will be solved at some point.
Yeah, cheers to that.
Yeah, so people don't have to worry about it. But very interesting. So I'm just going to add as a side note that you talked about the fact the chimp up in San Francisco, breast cancer. You're going to be following up on that and see what goes on. Yeah. When you think about a chimp, so heredity, environment.
Well, I think the older you get, the higher incidence that you get these sporadic cancers. When you're young, you really worry about genetic predisposition. What we know about cancer is that it takes numerous insults to a cell to turn from a normal cell to a cancer cell. It takes between 5 and 7 different hits to one cell to transform into cancer like that. So, as you go through life, you accumulate these mutations, not only from carcinogens in the environment, but random mutations that happen when your cells divide and all those sorts of things. And so, when you're 50-something-year-old chimp and you're super geriatric in human terms, I think it's a lifetime. I think it's a lifetime of just accumulating these damaging events. So, I'm hoping that maybe it's a hormone responsive type of thing. Apparently she's on contraceptives, and that's something that if these tumor cells have estrogen and progesterone receptors, that we need to get her off the contraceptives. I'm still waiting for the rest of the pathologist's interpretation on that, but
that's very interesting.
Hopefully she'll be okay.